My brief time with this lens was a roller coaster, to say the least. Tamron's 35-100 f2.8 continues what they do best, making zoom lenses with focal ranges that no one's really thought of. But with this one, my main takeaway is it might be their best performing lens yet, but who's it for? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Chris Hagen, a video producer and photographer in Portland, Oregon. And when I first heard about this lens, I really wasn't that excited about it. I couldn't understand who it was for or even where it fit within Tamron's lineup. Their holy trinity of f2.8 zooms is the 16-30, the 28-75, and 70-180. And then there's the Workhorse, the 35-150 f2-2.8, probably the best all-in-one option ever for weddings and events and lots of other things. So yeah, I had my preconceived biases when it came to the 35-100. Now, in making this video and testing it out, some of them were confirmed, but some were also proven wrong. But I think this story is best told chronologically, so I can take you through some of the ups and downs. So the main reason I rented this lens in the first place is kind of general curiosity as I try to make up my mind about which lens will be my Z-mount workhorse. I'm very familiar with Nikon's 24-70 f2.8 options and appreciate both for different reasons. But in the meantime, I had an event that I needed the zoom lens for and figured this would be a perfect chance to test out the 35-100. Upon arrival, the size impressed me for sure. It's thin, keeping with the 67mm filter thread that Tamron has on the 16-30, 28-75, and 70-180. That kind of consistency and foresight is probably underrated, and I would say it plays a role in keeping people locked into the Tamron system, whether you're shooting their lenses on Sony or Nikon. I also really like how short the zoom throw is. It doesn't take too much to go from 35 all the way out to 100. But at the same time, there is plenty of room along the way to comfortably navigate to 50, 70, and 100, if that makes sense. Plus, the lens doesn't extend that much when you're at 100mm and still feels very well balanced in the hand. The 35-100 also feels comfortable on the Nikon Zf, the ultimate gauge for how hefty a lens can be. Both versions of Nikon's 24-70 f2.8 are about as big of a lens as I'd probably want to have on the ZF for any amount of time. And this is noticeably lighter and more compact. It almost feels like a prime, like a heftier prime. So then I start checking out the autofocus, and it is fast, like first-party Nikon fast. Seriously, it's easily the fastest focusing third-party lens that I've used on the Z-mount and maybe any camera mount. To make sure I wasn't being fooled somehow, I started to really stress test it at 100mm, focusing on something further away, then focusing on something much closer. That's one area that previously gave me pause with Tamron's 35-150 for action sports. Sometimes it's just a hair slow when trying to focus from far to near and vice versa. I think there's just a lot of glass to move around in that thing, but that's not the case with the 35-100. Plus, the autofocus was confident, and you'll know what I'm talking about if you've ever seen it. Some lenses do a quick initial zoom, but then right before locking in onto the intended subject, they just kind of hunt for a second, like the lens is thinking, I think this is what I'm supposed to focus on. Oh yeah, this is it. Okay, got it. Whereas a more confident lens just does its job without asking questions. The 35-100 falls into the latter category. It sticks the landing and stays there for objects, people, eye tracking, all the things. So if you're looking at this lens and wondering if its focus motors can keep up with what your flagship camera demands of it, don't worry, it can. It is ZF, Z8, and ZR approved in that category. But before we get too high on it, let's move on to the next day, where the roller coaster got a little bumpier. So day 2 was showtime. I went down to the Oregon State Capitol in Salem to film an interview and cover the May Day festivities and march around the Capitol building. To keep a small footprint, I brought the 35-100 on the Z8 to do both photo and video coverage. I don't really shoot many interviews wider than 35, so no issues there. However, in photographing the event, one thing that I feared about the lens turned out to be true, at least for me. 35 is a little too tight on the wide end. Even as someone that shoots 35 and 40mm primes all the time, in a working environment where I was trying to rack up as many different looks as I could, I missed having 24 millimeters available. Like I talked about a few weeks ago discussing Nikon's 24-70 f2.8s Mark II, 24 millimeters is just such an immersive look when you can get close to your subject while still having the rest of the scene available in the background. And again, I like 35 millimeters as an everyday focal length and a good compromise for carrying a zoom lens, but I feel like the difference between 35 and 50 and 70 is just the difference between taking a few steps forward or backward, whereas 24 is a more unique look compared to 35 that gives you more variety and a clear departure from anything tighter. As I walked within the crowd during the march, picking out different shots, I would have loved to get just a little wider to show more supporting characters around my subjects. Not to mention, with the 45 megapixel Z8, I've always got room to crop in if I shoot a little wide. I'd say the same thing on the long end as well. Objectively, 100 millimeters is cool to have available, but if I was limited to 70, with your standard 24-70 zoom, with a 45 megapixel camera, and honestly even 24 megapixels on something like the ZF, cropping in that extra bit doesn't do a lot of harm for images, especially images that aren't getting printed. All that to say, over the course of shooting, I found myself missing 24 millimeters more than I was appreciating having 100 millimeters. You can almost always crop a little tighter, but when you want to get wider at a close distance and can't do it, it feels like much more of a limitation. While 35 on the wide end can feel a little limiting while working, as a walk-around lens, I really don't have as many complaints. I think it's because when you're on the job, as long as you have the access, you can get as close as you want or move freely, so 24 millimeters becomes really useful in those situations. But for my style of photography, I have a little less use for 24 millimeters most of the time. Especially out with friends and family, 35 gives me enough width when I want to capture the scene, and 100 gives me details and images that I wouldn't get with a prime without moving a lot closer physically. Over the weekend, I went full Portland and went to 2 farmers markets, and I remained very impressed by the autofocus, image quality, and the overall feel of using the lens. All of this stuff was captured using the Nikon ZR, which it handled really well on. The lens is really sharp in the center, even wide open. The vignetting at f2.8 is cleaned up once you close the lens down to f4, but even at f2.8, I never really found that minimal amount of vignetting bothersome. The lens offers lots of contrast and the colors really pop. For video, if you don't need wider than 35, this is a super lightweight option, and I feel like I appreciated the range a lot more for that than I did for photos. As much as I like the 35 to 150, it does start to feel a little unbalanced on the long end at 150, especially if you're shooting with anything smaller than the Z8. Shooting handheld video also becomes a little bit tougher to keep steady compared to this lens zoomed out to 100. And again, you can always kick the camera into a super 35 crop and still get a 4K image at 150 millimeters. Also, because it's become a little bit of a staple in my lens reviews now, I did a swinging test with this lens as well. It's a bit of a stress test to quickly track the subject back and forth, this being my daughter, and this did it just as well as Nikon's 24-70 f2.8s Mark II. So I'll say it one more time. Great job, Tamron, with the autofocus speed on this 35 to 100. For my last few days with the lens, I went back to my daily bread and butter, the Nikon Zf. I took it around Northeast Portland and to the park with my daughter, and this is where I started to really appreciate the lens again, or maybe it's just that I like photography a lot more with the Zf than the ZR. You can check out my full video about that if you want me to elaborate. Having used the lens exclusively for the better part of a week, I started to feel more comfortable and found myself really taking advantage of the focal length and zoom range. I see my compositions most naturally around 35 and 40 millimeters. But what I started doing was looking for those compositions a little bit further out. And instead of walking up to the scene to capture it there, I stood back and used the zoom to get that same kind of composition that I would at 35, but with more compression being further away, if that makes sense. And I think it was kind of refreshing, and it was nice to have options. And I think that's what this lens is all about, especially at this size. It's not as versatile as a 24-70, in my opinion, nor does it cover as much ground as a 35 to 150, which can replace a 24-70 and 70 to 200 all at once for a lot of people. But what the 35-100 does is give anyone that prefers shooting from a distance a lot of good options to work with. I'd also be remiss if I didn't touch a little more on the build. In addition to the lightweight, single function button, and the 3 custom switches that can be programmed in the Tamron Lens Utility app, you can also plug the Tamron link into the USB-C port on the lens and operate the camera focus remotely, pulling focus yourself while away from the camera or setting focus points for repeatable focus movements. These are things that are all possible this way. I didn't have a chance to use this myself, but it looks super cool and pretty intuitive. And personally, on the physical side, I am always a big fan of the zoom ring being the closest ring to the body like it is on this lens and the 35-150. I wish Tamron would just do that with all their lenses. An aperture ring would also be appreciated by video shooters, but I can probably survive without it. So look, I typically wouldn't label what I'm gonna say about this lens as final thoughts after just a week with it, but I do think a week told me everything I needed to know in both a good and bad way. The good, it's a unique zoom range that offers a lot of what portrait shooters would look for, as long as they don't need prime lens apertures like f2 or brighter. The autofocus competes with the best of the best. The image quality is outstanding. The size is very comfortable on lots of different bodies. The zoom throw makes it easy to use in fast-paced scenarios. And there's really nothing objectively bad to say about the lens. The downside is it just feels a little too similar to a 24-70 without giving you the versatility of a 24-70 and leaving you wanting on both ends. I'd rather be wider than 35, and its bigger brother, the Tamron 35-150 f2 to 2.8, feels more useful as a workhorse because you get f2 on the wide end at 35 and you get 150 on the long end. Like I just said, its focal range does a better job of giving you 2 lenses in one. I just can't say that about the 35-100. But the fact that this lens does come in at less than $1,000, far less expensive than a 24-70 f2.8, makes this a very attractive option for anyone that either knows they don't need to go wider, is fine carrying a 24mm prime just in case they do need to go wider, or someone that's looking for their first 2.8 zoom and wants something a little different. Nothing wrong with that at all. Anyway, I hope that answers some questions that you may have had like it did for me, but if I left anything out or need to clear anything up, holler at me in the comments and I'll see you in the next video.